Our special guest today is Dr. Tonya Cornelius, who is the Senior Vice President, Learning and Talent Solutions for the Walt Disney Company, where she serves as an integral member of the Enterprise Human Resources Senior Leadership Team. Tonya is responsible for learning and leadership development, talent and succession management, performance management, and career development. Tonya joined the Walt Disney Company 15 years ago after serving nearly 13 years at ESPN. We met when she was at Turner Broadcasting prior to that. Tonya is involved with several professional and civic organizations. Her full bio will be in the show notes. Please check it out. This leader we get to learn from today has been recognized by various industry and professional organizations. Among her most recent recognitions, she was inducted into the University of Florida College of Journalism and Communications Hall of Fame. She's a Wonder Woman, Mentor of the Year, Most Powerful Woman, Woman Worth Watching in Leadership, and has been recognized by Cablefax's Most Influential Minorities in Cable from 2012 to 2021. She is a role model for anyone associated with her. Tonya has established scholarships in her family's name and is a committed mentor and advocate for education. What I appreciate most about you, Tonya, on an enormously long list, is your passion to help people realize their full potential. I am in awe of you. Welcome to R.O.G.
Oh, Shannon, thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to our time together.
Me too. And just for the audience to know, you and I are personal friends. So this is our invitation to others to join us on one of our typically Saturday morning conversations. But I would love for you to share with our listeners a little bit of your background.
We're happy to. And I'm, again, so happy to be here and having this conversation with you. So, I don't know how far back to go, but I am born and raised Floridian. I grew up in Central Florida. It's amazing. I would say that I grew up in the front yard of the Walt Disney Company, it was just about 45 minutes away. And so it was always a place that we would go and take friends and visit and have fun. So Disney has been a part of my life since I was a child. I grew up in Central Florida, went to University of Florida and got my undergraduate degree in broadcast media. Started my first job out of college as a school teacher down in inner city Miami. And I believe that's where I had truly a pivotal aha moment, and really working in the inner city of Miami and teaching children of immigrants really instilled a lot upon me. And I knew from that point on, I wasn't sure that I would stay in the teaching profession, but I knew that I wanted to be a part of helping people realize their goals and dreams and believe in themselves. And that was the start of it all. It really changed the trajectory of my career. So fast forward, I stayed in teaching for many years. I was a military spouse for a time, and then I transitioned over into the corporate space. I said I wanted to get experience working with adults. And so started my corporate career, if you will, as a training manager in a small company in Atlanta. And it grew from there. I knew that I was doing what I love to do, helping people truly fulfill their highest potential and have a greater impact on not only on themselves, but on their teams. So grew from there, went back to school, eventually got my master's and my doctoral degree from the University of Georgia. So I'm both a gator and a bulldog. If you can be that, I am that. And I've enjoyed a career. And yes, you and I met when I was at Turner, and you were doing some work for, teams and working with leaders there. And we just hit it off right away. And so when I got to ESPN and now the Walt Disney Company, holistically as an enterprise leader, I knew I wanted to continue to work with you, and also that our friendship had grown over that time. So I'm a mom. I have a mom of a daughter who is a school teacher. And I have a son who still lives in South Florida. And I'm also a grandmother. I'm called Jima. Yeah, and so I am a fur baby mom also to Marley, and that's a little bit of my life. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that background. We get to meet these leaders in life and on ROG, and it's just interesting to know, where did they come from? How did they get here? What are some of their life experiences that have influenced them? And this passion, and I would just say your purpose in life around helping people find their true potential.
Yes.
Where did that come from? Like, what do you think influenced you to find that so interesting?
So it's an interesting story because, again, as I said, first of all, I grew up, my parents, my maternal grandparents were all educators. And I said, I will never teach. And not because I didn't respect and love the teaching profession. I just saw how hard that's a hard job. And so I thought I would never teach. And I went and got my undergraduate degree, as I said, from University of Florida in broadcast media. But my mother, so here's a little bit of this story. My mother passed away when I was a junior in college. And so when I graduated the following year, I was still like feeling very lost, not sure what just the anchor of my life had been taken away. And I grew up mainly, my mother and grandmother raised me. My father, who's still very present in my life, but lived in New Jersey. And so when my mother passed away, that was just a really tough moment for me. And I had a girlfriend. I have a girlfriend. Her name is Tonya. Also, she's the other Dr. Tonya. She said, why don't you come down to Miami and you teach for a year until you decide what it is that you really want to do? And so I didn't have a better plan. So that's what I did. And it was in that room, and I'd say kind of this dusty, dilapidated classroom because it was in the inner city of Miami. And one day I was having a conversation with my students, again, all children of immigrants, and I was going around the room and I was asking them, what did they want to be when they grew up? And I'd go around, and of course, the boys, they wanted to be police officers or firemen or professional athletes. And then I went to the girls, and the girls, of course, they wanted to be dancers. They wanted to own their own beauty salons. And then I get to the last student who was sitting right in front of me, in front of my desk. And she reminded me a lot of myself because she was actually rather quiet and reserved, but extremely popular among her peers. I asked her, I said, Anaris, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she leans over and almost whispers it to me. She says, I want to be a doctor. And she said it as though that dream was almost too big for her. She's this child of an immigrant in this very by poverty, in this, again, dusty, dilapidated classroom. And that dream, I'm sure, very, maybe even out of reach for her. And a wave of compassion came over me. And I looked in the faces of Anaris and all of my students. And I realized, Shannon, that they had the same dreams of any other child who's 11 or 12 years old. But I knew that they would face maybe higher hurdles to jump over to realize their dreams. And that's when I had an aha moment. And I said, I wasn't in that classroom by chance. It wasn't happenstance. I thought I was just doing a job until I figured out what I really wanted to do. But I feel now in my gut that I was meant to be there. I realized at that point that whatever I did for the rest of my career, I knew that I knew that I wanted to help people believe in themselves first. And yes, reach their highest potential and live their best lives. And that moment, that aha moment, served as a North Star for the way that I went about the rest of my career, even to this day. And so even to this day, that's what I feel like I do at the Walt Disney Company, and certainly in my personal mission of your AHA life, which I know we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yes, my gosh, that is beautiful. What an incredible story to think about, the unexpected ways in which you found your own path and potential, and just that wave of compassion that you describe, and how relatable that is for us. Like when you get to feel those things, that's a signal. And I know you're really astute at that, at like paying attention to how you feel, and like figuring out what does that mean and how can I
Yes.
learn, be really being curious. So yeah, I'd love to hear more around that, Tonya. Like for those listening that are saying, gosh, I wish I had, myself figured out, or if I knew where my calling is. I mean, I think some people, even later in their careers, they've been at this for a while, but they're still not feeling like they've got that clarity yet. What kind of coaching would you offer to them?
Yes, we all are that way at different points in our lives. We're living our lives. There's a quote, Warren Kierkegaard, I may be mispronouncing his name, who said, we live our life moving forward. I'm paraphrasing here. We live our life moving forward, but we understand it looking backward. And I think in that quote is the whole notion of, first of all, reflection, the power of taking time to reflect on our experiences, because I believe within them holds meaning. And if we just take time to pay attention, to Mary Oliver is another one that says instructions for living a life, pay attention is one of them. And so I, began a mindfulness journey, and it's grown over the years, but I started paying attention to the moments in my life. And maybe it went as far back as when my mother passed away, and this anchor being, ripped from you, and you decide, I got to figure out how to live my life,
Mhm.
not the life that other people want me to live, not the life that even perhaps has been expected of me, but what is the life that I want to live? And so I think for if I'm coaching or advising anyone is really to go inward and to reflect and to have some time for introspection, to answer questions that are, what I call perennial questions, Shannon, meaning that they keep coming back again and again until we answer them. And the questions are, who am I? I mean, who am I really? Again, not who people want me to be or who I feel like I should be, and not comparing myself to others or trying to keep up with others, but who am I really? What are my natural qualities? And I think that teaches us a lot. What do I value? What matters to me? And, then there's the question around what are the natural gifts and talents that I have? And we would say, what are these natural strengths that we have? But I believe they have to be strengths and that you find joy in those strengths. And then, the fourth question is around, how do I want to contribute in the world? I think when we really grapple with those questions and answer them, I think our way becomes clearer. We get so much more clarity about, again, who we are, what we want in life, and what we want to contribute in life. And I think that helps to answer questions that we have about our career, about relationships, about, a number of things. And so it's that clarity, I think, that can help us all.
What a comprehensive and helpful response for us to have those questions in mind. And I just love how you say they keep coming up until they're answered, or
Yes.
as things change and we
As things
evolve, right?
change.
Right. We want to keep that up to date. It's iterative. It's not like we're not etching this in granite, but it requires that self-reflection. And I think sometimes in a world where we're so overscheduled, and I think in some ways we enable that busyness so that we can avoid some of this self-reflection, which for some might feel daunting or scary. right? To really think about, like, well, if I discovered what I want, then it might be like little Aeneas, is that her name, your student?
Aneris.
Anaris. It might be
Aneris.
like little Anaris where, we're almost afraid, like, is it okay that I see myself in this way?
Yes.
Yeah. So what would you say to us who are feeling like little, maybe conscientious or concerned? Maybe it seems like too big.
Yeah, first of all, I understand it. It's understandable. But what I do believe is when we get to the end of our journey or near the end of our journey, I think what's more painful is if we look back and say we didn't live the life that we want to live, you know. And so I do think, taking those leaps of faith, believing in yourself. That's why self belief, I think, is such a powerful thing to have, because when we believe in ourselves, then no matter how big that dream may seem, we're at least going to take that first step. And I believe when we take that first step, the second step opens up for us.
Mhm.
So I would say, regret is perhaps one of the worst things you could feel. So to avoid getting near the end or at any point of your life and living such a regretful experience is to go ahead and believe in yourself. Know that you have everything you need within you to live the life of your dreams. It's not just this woo woo thing, but it's something you wouldn't have that dream. That's what I believe. You wouldn't have it unless you could do it.
Mm.
So believing in yourself and just taking one step forward toward it. And I believe the way starts to open up for us.
Right on. And there's a Roy Disney quote that says, if you can dream it, you can do it. So
Yes,
I think there's something around this, it feels like magic. And when you get to see it, it's similar to like a Disney experience where it seems surreal, but people go there and you get to have those real experiences and feelings. So it's real. So I
it's
think in that
real.
same way, right? That vision, believe in yourself, believe in your vision. And the reason why that keeps coming up for you is because it must be something worth exploring, even if it's not that exact thing that you get, after pursuing it, but the impetus or the kind of drive to go and explore that is something worth validating and checking out.
Yes, we are seekers. I think it's inherent in us. It's innate in us that we are dreamers, we are seekers, and we are doers. And that's what I say about, your aha life that I call fellow sojourners, is that these are the things that come more natural to us. We actually deny our natural state when we close ourselves off to our dreams and to possibilities and the things that we imagine, in our heads. I think there's so much power in first of all, looking fear in the face and say, I'm going to do it anyway. I have a friend of mine who taught me, and it's not her quote, but she taught me this because I see her do it over and over again. And she just says, do it scared. Like, do it scared. Yeah, don't let fear be the reason you don't do something. Just do it scared. And so I
Yeah.
believe so many successful people, whether it's explicit or implicit, I think that's what happens is that they just decide they're going to move forward anyway.
Mm. So true.
Yeah.
So as you're talking, I'm thinking about how it would be to be a team member of yours or, somebody who benefits from your leadership. So as you're believing in yourself and you're pushing yourself and in so many different ways in your own life, you are also coaching, mentoring, supporting, and encouraging others. So just love to hear about how you do that and just what is some of the fulfillment that you get from having that role in other people's lives, both at
Yeah.
work and in other spaces.
That is the fulfillment. That is the most rewarding part of what I do, of coaching, mentoring, advising, supporting, encouraging. others, whether it's on a project, whether it is, just in the day to day of the work, or even in personal lives. I get such a reward from that. And when we talk about generosity, right? I believe one of the greatest examples of generosity is through mentorship, because you truly are giving whatever you have to give in service to another, and with the whole intent of helping them reach their goals and dreams, of helping them to, whether that goal and dream is personal development or professional development. That's what you're there for, not seeking anything else in return. So you give with no intent. You give from what I call your whole heart, not seeking anything else in return. But of course, you and I know it's one of the greatest rewards that you get. You do get a lot in return. And so when I'm working with my peers, anyone, honestly, whether it's leaders who are most senior to me, whether it's my peers, or whether it's people that either report into me in some capacity or just junior, professionals across the company, you know, it's amazing to me sometimes, Shannon, when they seek me out and want to have a conversation with me, because they feel that I'm a great mentor. That is like, yeah, I can't ask for anything better. And I think my job there, my role there, my gift there is really to be a great listener, and to really listen to what is said and what is not said at times, but really trying to understand what it is that they want, and they want and need at that moment. And one of the things that I feel, as now this is part of my, whether it's mentoring or my coaching background, is that I believe all or most of the answers that people are seeking are already within them. So a great coach, a great mentor, a great leader is really listening and asking great questions, asking these empowering questions, so that the other individual can bring out the answer for themselves. And that's where I keep going back to this whole notion of self-belief. Um, I believe that we have the answers within ourselves, most of them anyway. And a great leader, mentor, guide, advisor just helps to bring it out. And I say mentoring is like walking alongside someone, right? And
Mm.
just for their benefit. But we know that the benefit becomes mutual, right? Circle.
Without a doubt. And something else I'm hearing in what you're saying is we can never really destroy our ego just because it's a part of being a human. But what I'm hearing in your approach is to minimize it, like really make our being right, or us having experience, or us, being somehow really helpful or whatever. And it's more about the other person. So like the humility
Yes.
and the gratitude for saying, like, thank you for inviting me on this journey with you,
Yes.
and like that listening with that curiosity, right? That's the approach I'm hearing you describe.
I'm glad you picked that up, because that's how I feel, honestly. That's the way I feel. I feel like I am partnering and journeying with others. We're all on the journey together. One of the greatest things that we can do is just understand that we're all here for each other. We're all connected in some way, and we can add certain things. And so I never, um, sit as the expert. And I know, people sometimes even want me to be the expert, and Dr. Cornelius and all these things. But Shannon, I always feel that I am a learner. I am learning, right alongside the individual that I may be helping in that moment. That's why I think there's such a reciprocity in it that is just like Anaris.
Mhm.
I'm sitting in the seat of the teacher, but it
Mm.
was the student who awakened something in me that changed my life and changed the path perhaps that I would be on in my career. And I think it's a lot. I wish I remembered Anaris's last name and can find her because
I was
she has
going to ask you.
no idea. She has no idea that she plays such a key role in putting me on the journey to finding a career that I absolutely have loved and I love to this day. And it's all about helping others
Mm.
to live their best lives. And whether that's their best professional lives, their best personal lives, I don't really compartmentalize it.
Mhm.
So I think just living our best lives, we're going to show up as our best selves at work and with our families and friends and all of that.
Thank you. And on that, you started a movement, is what I would call it, called Your Aha Life.
Yeah.
And you created this to be in service, to create a community, to help people find their potential, to help people meet other people who would want to journey together. So just tell us a little bit about Your Aha Life.
Yes, your AHA Life, I would describe it as a movement as well. It's my personal mission. And it is a movement that is a global movement because there are people all around the world now that are tapping into your AHA Life. And your AHA Life is a movement for the seekers, the dreamers, and the doers who I say want more for their lives and not more materially, so to speak, but more joy, more purpose, and more fulfillment. And whatever it is that brings that about, that's what I think we are sojourning together to help each other to realize. And so in your AHA Life, whether, I try to help people identify, do a bit of vision mapping and to understand what it is that they, again, going back to those questions: who am I, what do I want, what do I value, how can I contribute, finding those things that will lead them to a life of more joy, more purpose, and more fulfillment. And so yes, I blog. So your AHA Life has many components to it. One is the blog, and I too have a podcast and just a monthly newsletter, and then my private Facebook group, where it is a community of people who come together to share with one another, who give high fives, if you will, and in celebrating when people accomplish their goals and dreams, and just create this community of more.
Mm. Oh, that's a wonderful thing for our listeners to hear who want to learn more and want to get more of your thought leadership, your coaching, and join the movement. So it's a
Yes.
wonderful way that you've set it up so that people can participate and contribute and also get value from that. When you were talking about the questions that we have to ask ourselves, and one of them is around how do I want to contribute? I mean, just to come really like directly at the topic of generosity. I mean, why is
Yes.
that so important for us? In your experience, in your opinion, why is generosity like a part of what it means to be a human?
It's a great question. I believe, one, that we're all connected and we all have a role to play. And it's a yin and yang a bit because I give, but I also receive. And so this is the flow of life, I believe. And I believe we have this desire to give and to contribute. Abraham Maslow, who I follow his work a lot, of course, he talked about, kind of moving from fulfilling these very basic needs of survival. And then we move up to our social needs of love and connectedness and feeling a sense of belonging. And then this need of greater competence and self-esteem. And then he gets to self actualization. And he said, what a person can be, he must be. And so all of that is still, though, very focused on self. But before he died in I think 1970, he was he realized that there is more to it than self-actualization. That is not the top of that pyramid, if you will. He said transcendence is the greatest need and desire that we have in life. And so that is self transcendence, meaning I transcend myself because I realize that I am connected to a greater a greater world, if you will, whether it's people, it's nature, the cosmos, even, he said. So we are part of a universe, and our capacity to give and receive and transcend ourselves to be there for others really comes back to us, I think, many times over. And so I think it's self-transcendence, and I think it's a natural way for us to be in the world.
Well, incredibly beautiful. Yeah, so for us to be thinking about how can we experience that, and in what ways are we participating in the world where it's not about us, it's about being a part of, right? Yes, we matter, but it's not all about us.
Yes.
Um, those are,
Shannon, there's
yeah.
another one. I don't want to quote too many scientists here, but it just came up to me because, your podcast is Return on Generosity. And I look at the word generosity, right? And, we have this saying of, oh, that's so generous of you. And what does that really mean? Like generous. And then I think about when we say someone is that's so generous of you, that means someone has given something without any ulterior motive, but just giving it because they can give it.
Mhm.
I just think that's just a beautiful expression. And it drew me back to Erik Erikson, I think a German psychologist, and he talked about this whole notion of generativity and that this is where we get the sense of fulfillment. So I talk about more joy, more purpose, more fulfillment. Fulfillment comes through this generativity. Generosity is almost how do you keep moving humanity forward? How do you keep us advancing?
Mm.
It's through generosity. It's through giving. It's through, we call it, in its most basic form, it's, when we have children, that's a way in which that's a act of generosity and generativity to keep humanity moving forward. So I think there's just so much power in being generous. How generous of you. Um, in this whole generative nature, that this is what keeps the world turning.
Mm.
This is what keeps the world turning.
Absolutely. And I love that all of the examples that you shared are non-financial, because I do think that very often when we think about generosity, we think about philanthropy and generous giving, which is also important, right?
Yes.
We do need to, that's a part of how we are generative in the world, is that we're contributing to and supporting efforts that we believe are really necessary for humanity. So that is absolutely important. But because it's been over indexed as associated with financial giving, we really explicitly try to focus on how we are showing up at work. And I'm using the workplace as an example just because a lot of our listeners exist there and they
Yes.
see generosity elsewhere, but I want us to like really look for it and perpetuate it and mindfully live in a way that enables that generative nature. Like think about the best team you've ever been on,
Yeah.
right? Generosity is all around that team because everybody is showing up, delivering their strengths, offering them willingly, knowing when they need the others, collaborating, sharing, apologizing,
Yes.
forgiving, those things.
Recognizing, I mean,
Yeah.
I think I love that you said that. And yes, philanthropy and giving financially to causes we care about so that they can advance and, solve some of the world's problems. Hugely important. But we can be generous in so many non-financial ways. And just what you're saying in the workplace, we can help a coworker out on a project. we can give recognition to someone. We can give constructive feedback. Even giving constructive feedback with a pure heart to help someone to grow
Hmm.
is a very generous act. Leaders who sit down, who are inclusive, that's a generous act. And so there are so many workplace examples of ways in which we can be generous and which we are generous at work that we
Mm.
overlook. And so even passing someone in the hallway and giving a smile or a kind word is a generous act. It not only makes them feel better, but you feel better when you do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I love that you are centering this in the workplace, and it has ripple effects in every area of our lives, of course. But there's
Hmm.
so many aspects of generosity in the workplace to be mindful of.
Mm. And just like anything, when you focus on it, you see more of it. Right.
Yes.
And so I know you're a big believer in having a word of the year. So we'll close with this. Your word of this year is awe.
Yes.
Tell us more.
Yeah, so every year I pick a word. Usually a word starts coming to me, and I say it comes to me. Um, and it sits there, again, just like these perennial questions. It doesn't go anywhere until I do something with it. So for 2024, this year, my word is awe. And it's really about, again, being mindful of all the beautiful things that surround me. That awe isn't these big colossal things, although I am intending to go and spend time at the Grand Canyon. It's one of the most awe-inspiring places you can go. But awe happens when I come through the door at home and my dog is so happy to see me. That's awe. When a friend texts and just says, "Hi, thinking of you." That's awe. So all of these, you watch the sunrise or the sunset, or, you walk in your neighborhood and you see little children playing together, or particularly little children of all different races and ethnicities. I think, and so awe is anything that is beautiful. And so I chose it as a word. So not to just look for these big experiences in our lives, just like don't look for the big aha moments in your lives. Ahas are happening all the time if we just pay attention to them, if we just listen and stay open to them. And that's the same with awe experiences. And I'm having fun with it. I have an awe journal that I'm just like looking. So at the end of the year, I can look back and think about all of these different experiences that I had that really created a sense of awe and wonder in me.
That's incredible. And something that I really appreciate about your practice is how deeply you go into these subject matters, like where you buy books on awe and you
Yes.
really study it, right? It's not just, I mean, having it as a lens, that is, I would say, a step forward, but really digging in deep is
Yeah.
incredible.
There's a curiosity there. I wonder why the word came to me, because I do believe the words come to me. I start seeing the word over and over, or I think it, repeatedly. And so I want to know more about that word. I want to know what I'm going to be a companion of that word for an entire year or more, because those words usually don't leave me after they've been a part of me. And so I just want to know more about it. And so that I can lean into it and get the most out of the word, the experience, the sentiment, the concept.
What encouragement would you offer to our listeners who have not yet done that, but as they're hearing you talk about it, are intrigued? I mean, what is the value of having that kind of a focus for a year?
Yeah, there's a saying, again, I may be paraphrasing it a bit, but it says where your focus goes, energy flows. And so I think for the listeners, being mindful of where you place your focus and placing it on in things that are positive and that will uplift you and that will maybe open you in some ways, give you insight and inspiration in your life that will encourage you and, yeah, motivate you. And so, whether it's, I have people who have had words like peace. They want more peace in their lives, or self belief, I have, or self trust, or whatever the word is, then lean into that word. And I believe that where your focus goes, energy will flow there. You will see that, that word or that experience more and more in your life. And so, think about what is it you want more of in your life. Choose that word and let it take you. Just follow it wherever it leads you.
Mm.
And I think you will not regret that.
Oh, incredible. All right. So I'm going to attempt to recap what we've heard. Let me know if anything else triggers or if there's anything else that you want to share. So for those of us listening and thinking, how can I apply this to my own life? Here's a couple of things to consider. One is, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right? Asking yourself that question with all sincerity. Helping people believe in themselves first and helping yourself believe in yourself first. Being reflective, taking time to pay attention and reflect. Go inward and take that time to ask yourself those deeper questions like, who am I really? What do I value? What gifts and talents do I have? And what do I want to contribute? Believing in yourself, avoiding regret
Yes.
is something I heard loud and clear so you can live to your fullest. Recognize yourself as a seeker, dreamer, and doer. Don't do it scared, right?
Yeah.
And when you think about that big thing, just do it scared, do it anyway. Get the reward of encouraging and supporting people, be a mentor, be a learner. Find what brings you joy and fulfillment, like really be on a quest to figure that one out. And I love that seek self transcendence.
Yes.
Like what does that mean for me? Helping people, giving feedback, being inclusive. Think about your word of the year. And then the last thing you just shared with us is being mindful of where you place your attention. Anything else you would want to add to that, Tonya?
Wow, Shannon, my captured. Yeah, you captured a lot of it. I add perhaps one more that was unspoken but implied through all of that is, walk the way of integrity. And I don't mean just being honest and ethical and moral. I mean your truest self, authenticity. And it's been implied, throughout what I've said, but I think integrity is such a point. It means whole and intact, whole and intact, your true self, your authentic self. Again, not living, just to live up to someone else's expectations, but truly you are a beautiful, unique soul in this world. The world is in need of you, and just as you are. And so that is generous, being your truest self and giving your truest self and talents and gifts and passions and your own liveliness to the world is really the one of the biggest acts of generosity that you can offer.
Oh, thank you for this, sharing your precious time with us and your wisdom and encouragement. And just, I'm deeply grateful for you as a human and as my soul sister.
Yes, yes. That feeling is so mutual, Shannon. And I'm so happy we got a chance to finally do this. I know we scheduled it for a while, but we did it.
Yeah, so it
Yeah.
was so fun.
Yeah.